Thank you very much to Keith Cardoza and everyone at the Economic Club of Chicago for hosting this event, and thanks in particular to the Auto Alliance for sponsoring this lunch today. Before I begin, on behalf of the senior leadership and frankly everybody at General Motors, I'd like to express our condolences to the family and friends of Jim Matea, as well as to his colleagues at the Tribune, Mama, and throughout the automotive press. Jim was a fixture on the auto beat for a long time, so long in fact that one of the first stories he ever did about General Motors had a headline that said, "Vega sales to surpass Pinto." Jim was one of the smartest, the fairest, and the most respected journalists in the field, and he's sorely missed already. As those of you who knew him can attest, the Chicago Auto Show will not be the same without him. Today, I'd like to talk with you about the future, especially as it relates to General Motors and to Chicago. Last year, as you might know, Mayor Emanuel launched the city vision in Chicago of Zero Vision Chicago. This is a data-driven, multi-agency approach to improving traffic safety for all citizens, whether they be in vehicles, on bikes, or on foot. Vision Zero will reduce the number of roadway crashes with the goal of eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries in Chicago by 2026. At General Motors, we have similar plans and goals, and we think that we can help. We're transforming the company to be at the forefront of change in this industry as the future rapidly approaches. And we have a two-part strategy to do so. Firstly, to strengthen and grow our core business of building and selling great cars, trucks, and crossovers. And secondly, to define and lead the future of personal mobility through the creation of an entirely new transportation business model. Our core business is strong and getting even stronger. The evidence is in our record profits for 2016, where we made more than $12 billion pre-tax, or as I like to think about it in simple terms, about $1 billion a month. And it's in the vehicles on the show floor at Cadillac, Chevrolet, Buick, and GMC. The evidence is also on the road, especially here in Chicago, which is traditionally a very strong market for General Motors, and for Chevrolet in particular. And we'd like to thank all of our tremendous Chicagoland dealers for that, because without them, this wouldn't be possible. 2016 marked the 6th consecutive year that Chevrolet has been the market leader in Chicago. The Chevy Malibu is the best-selling midsize sedan in town, and 10 other Chevrolet models were leading in their segments. And as we look to the future for Chicago and elsewhere, our plan for it is much like Vision Zero's. And we intend to get there while building vehicles that are cleaner, smarter, safer, and more energy efficient than ever. At General Motors today, we find ourselves at the intersection of the one hand of having this huge business that's running very successfully, and on the other hand, trying to make sure that we're best positioning our company for the future. For more than a century, our business has been centered on selling cars to individuals, hoping they have a great experience, and that a few years later they will come back, trade their car in, and buy another one. That model is changing. One of the fundamental drivers of the high cost of car ownership is the very low utilization rate. If you live here in the city and you buy a nice car for $50,000 or $60,000 and you pay $1,000 a month to park it, just to have it sit in that parking lot 95% of the time and depreciate, you can understand that that's not a very good economic utilization model. Ride-sharing solves a big problem of that model because it significantly increases the utilization of the asset, which changes the economics of getting from point A to point B. Another important development is the ubiquity of the mobile device, which has created a significant opportunity cost for the time that you spend driving. So instead of driving in traffic, I can be doing something else, like doing emails, working, and so on. These two factors together, the high cost of ownership and the high cost of my time lost while driving, are a couple of the forces that are changing the whole consumption model around car-based transportation. So we look at that and we ask ourselves, how will this evolve in the future? If you take the rideshare model and you combine it with rapidly developing autonomous vehicle technology, eventually that very high cost of transportation can come down further and utilization will rise. That's why we have put ourselves at the forefront of this trend. We've invested in Lyft, and we acquired Cruise Automation, a San Francisco-based autonomous vehicle startup with extraordinarily deep software talent and rapid development capability. With Cruise inside of the GM fold, we have accelerated our progress. We've begun testing a fleet of Chevrolet Bolt EV autonomous vehicles in 3 different states. The new Bolt EV, as you may have heard, is an absolute game changer. It's an affordable electric vehicle with 238 miles of range, room for 5 adults, and all of their belongings. The Bolt EV is built on a dedicated electrical vehicle architecture, and it's much more than just an electric car. It is, in our view, a foundation for an electric, autonomous, ride-sharing future. We're putting the autonomous Bolt through a demanding testing program, and we're doing it with safety being absolutely top of mind. That's why we haven't put any members of the public into our vehicles yet. When we do customer research, safety is the first concern that comes back with regard to autonomous vehicles. We want them to be absolutely ready, safe enough to put our own children into, and that's why we're testing so rigorously. At some point, and it's going to be sooner than most people think, we will deploy our autonomous vehicles, still with a backup driver, into a rideshare fleet. At that point, people can get into them. We'll use that fleet to accumulate all the data we need to convince ourselves and regulators that we're ready to go fully driverless. Last month, I showed video footage to investors of a ride I took with our Cruise Automation team in an autonomous Bolt EV in San Francisco. Today, with all of you, I would like to share more of our progress. I'm going to show you a time-lapse video of a 23-minute drive, so it's not going to take 23 minutes to go through, on public streets in a very complex driving environment. This drive, as you will see, was done with 0 driver takeovers, and you'll be able to see that by watching footage of the steering wheel in the lower left corner. So pay special attention to a couple of things in the video. You can look out for them. The Bolt AV navigates through several construction zones. Keep in mind the complexity of managing that in an ever-changing construction landscape. You'll see a pedestrian during the drive who jaywalks safely, thanks to the technology in the car. And a few minutes in, you'll see an intersection where we're behind a vehicle waiting to make a left turn, and another car cuts in front of us, but the autonomous vehicle navigates all of that fully safely. You'll also see a biker who cuts us off, and you'll see a double parked truck that we navigate our way around. So that's all normal, everyday activity on the streets of San Francisco. We couldn't reach the level of competency that you will see in this footage in such complicated situations if we were testing just in a suburban environment, or if we were testing just on our proving grounds. So let's take a minute now and take a look at this video. So you can see the technology is very real, it's moving very quickly, and it can soon be a real commercial reality. Our real-world autonomous vehicle testing program started in California and Arizona. It's now expanded to Michigan when the state legislature recently approved that. Here in Illinois, a bipartisan group of lawmakers in Springfield is working on legislation to make the deployment of self-driving cars a reality in this city and in the state. We're encouraged by the work of Senators Sandoval, Harmon, and McConaughey, as well as Representatives Zaleski and Demmer. We look forward to working with local governments to deploy self-driving cars in the safest way possible. In addition to advancing safety, self-driving cars have the potential to reduce congestion, supplement Chicago's public transit system, provide connectivity between downtown and the suburbs, and facilitate a system of doorstep-to-doorstep mobility for elderly and disabled residents. As I said, to make autonomous vehicles the best they can be and the safest they can be, we really need to be testing on public streets. It can be limited to a geofenced area, but it needs to be on public streets in a real-world environment like what you just saw in the video. It's important this gets done because autonomous vehicles can provide many benefits to society in terms of safety, convenience, and quality of life. A recent study I saw suggested that 30% of all vehicles driving on city streets are actually people looking for a parking spot. And so there's your convenience and quality of life improvement right there. More important, of course, is safety. In 2015, traffic accidents cost more than 35,000 lives in the United States, which was the largest percentage increase year over year in half a century. It's estimated that well more than 90% of these accidents were caused by human error, errors that autonomous driving has the potential to eliminate. While this transition to autonomous takes hold, we're taking other actions to address the changing nature of vehicle ownership. These actions include the Cadillac Book program that we're launching in New York. For $1,500 a month, instead of having only one vehicle for the life of the lease, Cadillac owners can have their choice of vehicles and continually switch between them. And it's convenient, the vehicle they select will be delivered to their door with white glove concierge service. So they can drive an SUV all winter, a performance sedan in the summer. They can have a CT6 during the week, or take an Escalade for a weekend trip to the Hamptons or to Vermont. So that's just one example of us moving toward a new transportation model. In addition, about a year ago, we launched Maven, a unique car-sharing concept as a brand new startup inside our 108-year-old company. Maven has been operating in Chicago since last spring. So, to put it in perspective, in 1908, General Motors was born and the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. They didn't win it again until the year that Maven arrived in town. That's just one of the many reasons I expect this city to fully embrace Maven. Another reason is that Maven is fundamentally a great fit for Chicago. You have a lot of young professionals here adjusting to a car-free lifestyle. The city has great public transportation and very walkable neighborhoods. And when someone needs to use a vehicle to get somewhere, Maven is just around the corner. All you have to do is download the app and sign up. All of our vehicles have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and all of the connectivity that our members need to easily access their music, messages, maps, contacts, and other information. Maven now has 3 product offerings, and they're all here in Chicago. The first one, Maven City Car Sharing, launched last April. So more than 20 locations throughout downtown here in Chicago. There are about 45 vehicles to choose from Chevy Cruze to Cadillac Escalade. And of course everything in between in the fleet. This will cost you as little as $8 an hour or $64 a day, depending on the vehicle. And we're already up to 1,400 members in Chicago. The second offering is Maven Express Drive. This is an exclusive service for Lyft drivers who want to use one of our vehicles. Maybe they don't have their own vehicle or they don't want to use their own vehicle. So far in Chicago, we're up to nearly 1,700 members who have driven a combined 15 million miles in less than a year. Thirdly, Maven Home. This is where we partner with a building complex to keep a vehicle fleet on hand for residents to use. We're currently at the Aqua building, where we have 800 residents have access to Maven vehicles. So far in Chicago, we've seen membership across Maven increase on average by about 23% per month. So we have very high hopes for the type of innovation that Maven represents. We have about 8,000 vehicles in the Maven fleet from coast to coast, and its members have driven them nearly 60 million miles in less than a year. So Maven is just a year old. You know what one-year-olds can be like. They're disruptive, often petulant, sometimes not quite housebroken. But another thing that the typical one-year-old does is grow and grow really fast, and that's what we expect from Maven. We think it's a great addition to the landscape as we transition towards this new transportation business model. At the same time, so in parallel with all of that, the largest and most profitable part of our business today is selling pickup trucks and SUVs. And that typically happens outside of the urban environment to commercial vendors or to fleet operators as well. And we don't think that business is going away anytime soon. It's going to be here for a long time. So as the part of the business that makes most of our money remains intact, it will help us to pursue other areas that will become increasingly important in the future. And we've created this really interesting intersection between rideshare, deep software capability, and massive industrial manufacturing scale, and the know-how to make cars. The assembly of those pieces together puts us in a very unique position to help define the future of mobility. And that future is fast approaching. So are vehicles that are cleaner, safer, smarter, more energy efficient, and as you've seen, soon to be driverless. I know skeptics remain, people who say, this will never happen. Well, I'm here to tell you it's happening already. Change is upon us. And as you Chicagoans all know, plenty of things that people said would never happen have happened. Thank you very much for your attention today, and I hope you have a great time at the show.